The Transformers, the movie. 8603. Studio Series Blurr. I am loving the box art on these 86s. Holy smackerel. Would you feast your papers on this magnificent blue bastard? It's funny, with the Bayverse figures, I couldn't give a brass wazoo about the background packs they come with. It's a nice idea, but I didn't really care. But with these 86s, God, they're beautiful. Oh man, he is something else, isn't he? Like, these 86 figures really are the Gina Davis of Transformers. What I mean by that is that they're in a league of their own.
Brian, whatever happened to Gina Davis? She used to be in movies, but you don't see her no more. Bad tooth to gum ratio. Brian? Go, never mind.
The sculpt and colors on this guy are just beautiful. I have seen some people being a bit butthurt about how long these bits on the back of his arms are, but they don't really get in the way of any of the articulation. They look fine against the back, and it's something that Blurr's always had as part of his character model, well, his G1 character model anyway. So it ain't no thing but a chicken wing. They've just done such a good job of hiding all vehicle mode business. I was having a look before. I don't think this piece comes off to be able to give him his shield, but we can do that, can't we? A lot of real true to life detail here. It's really fantastic. This looks so much like it should be a bicep swivel, but it isn't. He's got an elbow swivel instead, which is fine. He just looks so much like Blurr. He has this really toyetic quality, like he's just jumped right off the screen and just come flying up and giving it a bit of, I'm trying to get the Dinobots on the shuttle electromagnet, I'm trying, but the Dinobots won't go, they won't go at all. He's like the Twister Phelps of the robot world. Now it's finna be some energy, we got the remedy, I'm in the vicinity, but they can spit it with me. Feel the fire whenever we act up, everybody else is incompatible with the artillery, so forget about it when you hear about it, it's too fast when I pass the baton to Buster. Hit a victim in the middle of the body, every bullet, every rhythm, every murder is a structure. In terms of articulation, he has some wonderfully unique features that I can't think of I've seen on many Transformers before. His shoulder joints, this section topping off his arms, is actually independently sculpted and mounted to the rest of his arm. So you can get a huge degree of articulation out of this because of the way it's mounted. Admittedly, that does look potentially a little fragile, but way to not ruin any of his lines. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I can depose, I love you. His hands do swivel, but I wouldn't recommend it for in robot mode because it throws off how these big bits sit on the back of his arms. We got waist swivel, we got cool mushroom peg joint that I've noticed they've been doing in a lot of the 86s for the thighs. Quite a deep knee, not super deep. Customary ankle tilt, and something cool about the old Blurster is he also has, because of transformation largely, he has a little bit of toe articulation. So you can have him, mid-fast boy if you want. From looking at him as well, you really wouldn't expect him to be as beautifully balanced as he actually is. I love everything about this figure until you get up top to that Scaramouche. Right, his helmet is great, but then the actual face sculpt, it seems really, really long for how Blurr normally looks. It's kind of the same thing they did with Cup. I do still find myself wishing that his head was on a separate ball joint so you could just get some more dramatic lines out of him. Right, how much is his jaw coming down past his helmet? That's not something that often happens with Transformers. It's just a few mil. If you just squeezed all that up, a few mil, this would be the perfect, the definitive Blurr figure. It's just that long face is a bit creepy, right? These black eyes, it's supposed to be light piped, but because you've got such a narrow gaze, there's not actually many positions where you can get a sense of that piping. So it kind of ends up having a quality like the Gentleman from Buffy or something like that. I'm not normally big on third-party stuff, but if there was a really good third-party head that actually looked more like Blurr's animation model, I think I could wholeheartedly get behind it. Now, he does also come with a couple of accessories. First you get his blaster, and then, because, I don't know, why not, you can also go ahead and snap this piece on, and now he can weld, like he welded in the movie. Weld, Now, as good as he looks, he is not perfect. Like I said, there's the head business. And then you've also, annoyingly, these bits don't really peg in satisfyingly to his arm. They do droop a little bit. If they were just that little bit more secure, that would be radical. But they're not, and I can live with that. Now, when it comes to blur comparisons, I don't have a huge volume of figures. I haven't managed to get a G1 blur. Titan's Return blur I do have, but I didn't bother opening him because I really didn't like him. Especially when, you know, Nordica use of that mold, in my opinion, is cooler than the blur one. What I do have, though, is that super dope Generations blur figure that uses the drift mold. After a couple of years of having had the reduced scale in the different size classes, every time you bust out for comparison or whatever, like an older version of a character, there's just so much more heft to this one. I do find this figure but is a little bit too crowded for its own good. So I do love this, and I always have this blur out on display because it's just as good as the drift mold, and I love that IDW-esque head sculpt. For a G1 blur, this is incredible. And for the love of the game, let's go ahead and have a look at him alongside a couple of other 86 originals. Let's get him in there with Autobot's city dwelling friends Cup and Hot Rod. Now, Hot Rod doesn't suffer from the horse face syndrome that Blur does, but Cup most assuredly does. Hey guys, why the long face? Back in '86, it was a very fine year. New robots were here. Prime made us shed a tear. Alright, let's go ahead and check out Mr. Speed's vehicle mode, shall we? So, first thing, come around the back, flip up this whole shooting match. Up, and around. Bring him back around the front, and twist around this little cockpit. Cute. Flip out that waist panel. Put those hands in the air like you just don't care. Pull down these panels. Flip them up to cover his hands. Ooh. Well, there's something to be mindful of. Come down to those legs. You're going to flip out pretty much the whole shin. Flip out that leg, flip out that leg, come around to the back, and flip out that super speed spoiler. And on each side, straighten out those feet. So you got something that looks like this. So that was the easy part. Now we want to come around, fold those legs up, snap this whole shooting match together. It's actually quite a difficult one to do because it's got a notch tab and a peg. So you kind of got to slide it down at the same time as you peg it, which is a little easier said than done, to be honest. That is a difficult snap. Difficult snap. Once you've got those legs folded up in position, turn him around and close those feet over. They will tab in here, as well as there's pegs for them here. From there, we want to pull down these shoulder joints. Get each of these chest panels, flip them up. There's clearance issues with the feet, of course. Alright, these chest panels have got ports where these tabs slip in to hold the feet in place, theoretically. Then to finish him off, all you gotta do is slide these back, and there's a series of tabs that run down the side of his vehicle mode that correspond to tabs on his armies. I find it is easiest to get these front clips in first, and once they're secure, everyone else will follow. And there we have Blur in all of his Cybertronian hovercar glory. You can also go ahead, flip him over, and then you've got some weapon storage. So if you see on the vehicle mode, you've got this notch here, you've got the same notch on his gun, so you can get some weapon storage going. You can also then get his little welder, and that will sit behind it. So you can store all his accessories. Except, you know, it doesn't look great. What I love about a Cybertronian vehicle mode is you can get a little bit kibbly with it, and it doesn't really affect anyone's anything, because who's to say that that's not exactly what's there. Maybe those feet workers, it's landing gear, and the rare occasions where Blur's staying still. Look how thin that is, the tip, right? This is definitely a robot built for speed. Should you get Blur? Of course you should friggin' get Blur. What are you even talking about? What kind of stupid question is that? God, go get him. He's phenomenal. The other thing that I've noticed about the 86 figures in general is whilst they are incredibly articulated, it's not, they don't have a huge amount of flow to that articulation, if that makes sense. It's a lot of like, all right, twist that there, then bend that if I'm trying to get that. You know what I mean? It's not as fluid as, say, like Siege and Earthrise figures are with their articulation, particularly on the shoulders and stuff. It's the same deal with Hot Rod. These figures feel very much like you're meant to get it, open it, have a quick fiddle, pose it out, never touch it again. I'm also not a huge fan of the way at most angles, the way the sculpt ends up being lit is it looks like he's got a teeny tiny little Michael Jackson nose. Lisa, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Lisa.